All right. Yes, we're going to. We're going to. Don't worry. I'm not a rube. I know what I'm doing. Sometimes it's a Monday morning though, so who knows? Let me make sure our lovely game volume is going, because we need to hear that wonderful brawl theme. Oop, there we go. All right. Hello, VOD viewers, because there are currently 0 viewers online. We are back with another episode of Fan Game Follies, and this week we're going to be continuing our quest through Project M to see, hopefully, if we could actually get some modded content, because currently we have not unlocked anything, any of the new characters yet, so hopefully we can get to it. But first, before we get started, I'll do the land acknowledgement that Matthew so lovingly pulled up for me. So we acknowledge that in Milwaukee, we live and work on traditional Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee homelands along the southwest shores of Michigami, part of North America's largest system of freshwater lakes, where the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Kinnickinnic rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations remain present. Yeah, so Matthew...
Yeah, I'm Matthew Carricker. I'm a first-year PhD student in the anthropology department here at the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Nice. And I am David. I am a PhD student here at the English Plan H, part of Cinema Media Digital Studies, all that good stuff.
But we both study games.
We do.
Flash noise. Toilet
we
flash
do.
Noise.
We're just like Ian Bogost.
I'm leaving.
I'm excited to talk more about this game this week because I absolutely love Smash Brothers, and this is...
So this is the same game we were playing last week?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Because I know it's good to have various opinions.
Well, now that, you know, the shock has gone away, maybe I can approach this. I see you didn't bring a second controller for me this week.
Oh, we could. Actually...
Oh, of course, we've got every controller known to man.
Yes. We will figure this out. We might have an extra Logitech in here.
So yes, back playing this game. And last week, we were talking about how this game articulates a neoliberal social grammar. What do I mean by that? And that it simulates a certain kind of approach to agency in which, because you're able to play as any player in any setting from a whole number of games, you have the appearance of infinite freedom of choice, identity, and action. However, under a very thin surface,
yeah, of course.
The distinct agencies and freedoms that you actually have are actually very small, maybe even singular, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You can play every character, but they all only have the same homogenized abilities and powers. You can play in any setting, but they're all floating platform maps with a major platform and 2 smaller platforms. And you can, and I think that's basically it. That's how reductive the agency actually is. So how is that representative of neoliberalism, David?
Well, I think a big thing is the, I think choice as a mechanic, right?
Interesting.
Or even if we don't think of it as like an actual game mechanic, it puts itself forward as a mechanic of the game, right? Where since you have the ability to choose from these 36 characters, right, spanning across decades of video game history, it positions the player as someone who is an agent of choice, right? Who is someone who is...
Choice itself as satisfying.
Yes.
Choice itself is compelling as the site of fulfillment.
Yes.
Rather than the commitment of that choice.
Correct. Yeah.
Or the consequences of that choice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say that the game, if you want to bring in Althusser here, which we always love to do, it interpolates you, right, as a player who articulates their desire through choice.
Right, yes, because by playing through the social grammar, we are learning how to act successfully or legibly, or what would our friend, our performative friend, the philosopher, say, felicitous, in a way which is felicitous or marries well with the very shallow but broad range of choice that is presented to us. You know?
Yeah. Right, and it positions choice as the kind of ultimate, no pun intended when it comes to Smash Brothers, right? Choice itself then, ooh, we're altering the screen there. That's fun. Right, it's like almost as if this is like the culmination, right, of
The zenith.
the zenith, yes, right, of how to play is through choice, right? You have all of these game franchises that are coming together all as one in this ultimate compendium of video game history, and how you get to engage with that is through choice, right? A player as choice, which is very typical.
So then once we move past the choice stage, which is always, you know, you've got 4 players. Imagine you got 4 players, they're all choosing their characters, they're arguing about which level to play, which music to play whilst they're playing the level, you know, all of this sort of stuff, all of these choices. But then once they actually play, in my opinion, as an outsider, nobody knows what's going on, what buttons do what. It's very difficult to actually have a performance which is elegant or eloquent, you know, or strategic. Where's the strategy in this game? It's just random. It's just random chaos.
The strategy comes, I think, from the competition of not the casual player, but of the, you know, expert player, is where strategy might fulfill that. But of course, that's all, I think, also encased in the same neoliberalism, because the reason that most people develop skill in that is in order to win and succeed, and then Nintendo benefits from the marketplace of competition. But anyways.
Right, yeah, so what is actually the function of this game? It's to advertise other games.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
It's to showcase the broad metaverse of Nintendo. Okay, hold on. Be gentle.
I will.
Okay, so B is jump. A is... Oh, I've got Toad.
Yeah, so that's a special move where if you put Toad up while I'm attacking you...
Oh,
here.
it's like a shield.
Yep.
Okay, so wait, try and attack me now. Oh, I said... Okay. Ah, okay. And then square is just a little slap.
Yep, so that is your basic attack, and your basic attack changes...
Yeah, basic.
Yeah, depending on which direction the control stick is going.
Alright, okay. And then this is just a little jump. Okay, cool.
Yep.
And then that's like a... This is like a... Okay.
Yep. And you can jump twice in midair. Or you can jump twice.
Jump once in the air? Or,
yep. Yeah. And then your third jump is your up B move.
Well, how do I do the up B?
You do up and B at the same time. Or up and A. Sorry, up and A for you.
Oh, I see. Okay, so jump, up and A.
Yep.
Ah, and I got an umbrella.
Yep.
All right, so you ready? Ready?
Yes.
You want to get set? Ready? Join me? Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
I can throw fireballs at you. Whoop. I got my own little block move.
Oh.
it like sends the character the other direction. The flag does. Oop.
Cool.
See, that's why I think this is probably most akin to, like, I mean, it's a very easy comparison, but it's the function for Nintendo and for video games, you know, en masse to be included in something like Smash Brothers is very similar to, like, a Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh yeah, let's talk about those parallels, because, you know, I haven't watched Ender's Game or whatever, or any of the other. I watched Guardians of the Galaxy because I'm a yacht rock boy, but they're both instances of what showcasing. I mean, oh dear. But then it could be argued that the agency of choice is upended in those movies, right? Because it's actually about you're not choosing between separate superheroes to watch their distinct films. You're watching one in which they all feature.
Yes. And that's obviously like most apparent when you go to like Avengers Endgame, etc., etc. But I think it's also the function of like the post-credit screen, right? Where so for example with Avengers, I know I haven't seen them, so I shouldn't say too much about them. But I know like before the Captain Marvel movie came out, there was like a little post-credits scene from one of the Avengers films where they like call Captain Marvel and they're like, "We need your help," and then her movie's coming out next, right? And even if that character is not part of the diegesis of the film itself, right? There's that little button on the end to make you excited and expectant for the next film in the franchise. And it's simply done by just saying like, "Oh, this character exists," by the way. Right? They serve no narrative function beyond the little sneak peek at the end, which is essentially like an updated form of a trailer, right?
Aha!
Oh yeah, you can also grab if you hit the right button, right trigger. Wait, no, the right bumper.
Okay. Oh, I'm a bit dizzy there. Having a dizzy spell. Ooh. So yeah, Altheiser is interesting when we think about games, and I was talking to Ryan House about games and literacy. And, you know, Altheiser sort of talks about one of the functions of interpolation is to become literate in the ideology of the state apparatus. So whether that's something explicit like, you know, the government or the church or the police, you know, or it's something more informal like gender roles or family organization. Interpolation is the process by which we learn how to not get it wrong.
I think it's also interesting too, right? Because I don't think Althusser necessarily gets into this, but the idea of interpolation, I feel like as a literacy tool, right? As being able to navigate and read the world around us, how it's structured.
Yeah.
It also then creates or interpolates the interpolated as an instructor of further individuals who will be interpolated.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're not only being literate in terms of how to navigate the world around you individually, but you're being told how to regulate other people as well, or interpolate other people as well.
It's funny that you talk about that because one of the things that underpin interpolation is the regularity of ideological processes, right? It's sort of like through the regularity of ongoing society, we learn how to act based on those patterns and that patterning of ourselves. And one of the things I'm seeing here is like she's just fucking pulled out some sort of racket, you know?
Oh, yep.
And the umbrella as well, right? It's sort of like how much, you know, beyond the agency of choice, does Smash Brothers also function as a metaphor of neoliberal agency? And that once we're actually acting, what we're really doing is just reacting to increasing levels of uncertainty. I've got no idea what's happening, what's going to happen, or how I can react to it. But learning how to make that fun you know, is, I think, a big part of neoliberal subjectivity. And that, you know, what we need to learn how to do is go with the flow. Well, I think Donna Haraway calls it not neoliberal responsibility, but responsibility. Our ability to respond to increasingly precarious and non-repeating patterns in the world around us. And that's, you know, it's important. This is why we have these cultural logics like vibing, you know. and a sort of repositioning of where we can affect things away from the world and onto how we react to the world. A kind of stoicism, which is actually, because stoicism isn't really about building relationships. Donna Haraway is all about relating and co-becoming, you know, and how much is that sort of commentary on, you know, how this makes me feel versus how this makes you feel, and how we can both work together to, you know, relate to the world in a common way, you know, actually a kind of response to that shift in responsibility, right? Where we're no longer able to respond effectively to the world because it's like Smash Bros, always fucking changing. And we're always changing because we're able to choose from an increasingly larger corpus and archive of identities, selfhoods, ways of framing and understanding. And therefore, that shift of where is our, what would be the term for this? Like, well, I guess where we put our energy in order to ensure our ontological security, right? How do we ensure the reproduction of the world in a way that also reproduces ourselves, the things that we value, the things that are meaningful to us?
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is it seems like under this neoliberal context, the reproduction of the world around us, as if you want to think about capitalism in particular, or late stage capitalism, is it's mapped onto our own, or we are interpolated that the reproduction of our own identities are vital to the continuation of that as well. And like that link between reproducing the society around us, the economic system around us, is part and parcel with the reproduction of our own identity.
And the success of that reproduction, right? The degree to which we personally think that we have succeeded within whatever scales or you know, gameful mechanics, right? Or whatever, the scoreboards that we choose to be the ones that we want to measure our value against, you know? And us reproducing ourselves, you know, as successful within those grammars, like you're saying, is also co-opted as reproductions of the systems themselves, you know? So to be successful under capitalism in an increasingly in any form is also to be reproducing it. You know, perhaps when it wasn't so insidious, there were a time in which you could reproduce yourself successfully in a way which was tangential to capitalism. You know, and this is where indie movements versus mainstream are always an interesting dyad in tension of one another. You look at like indie music and how it's incorporated into the mainstream, indie games and how it's incorporated into the mainstream. And of course the ways in which capitalism always expands in order to commodify and create a market within anything that is new and tangential to it. You know, and so, you know, it's like I always say about empire, largely in the United Kingdom, you know, you go out and you colonize the world, and then sometime in the 80s we turned it on ourselves. We turned those techniques for colonization and commodification onto ourselves, and the site of colonialism, not that it wasn't always the body, but it became sort of relocated on the home, like the colonial metropole, right, the United Kingdom, and the body as a consumer, you know,
the individual body rather than the mass.
That's right. And so you see increasingly markets opening up within the body, markets opening up within the mind, and how we mediate, you know, for example, fucking smartphones, you know, or anything, you know, the sort of the locus of where we should put our, let's play another game, the locus on where we should put our efforts, right? Shifting from the outside world where things are happening, you know, where we can make change, which, you know, within a theory of making the world better, right, progressive politics or whatever, and how the locus of where we should focus our energy shifting from affecting the outside world to satisfying our inner world.
It kind of reminds me of like Get Good, you know, like that phrase in terms of like being a master mastering a video game.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking something like Smash, right, where it has become a global economic phenomenon of these huge tournaments.
Yeah.
Right, and this idea, and the regulation online of online play of, you know, get good or similar phrases, like the goal or the idea of like becoming so good at a game that you can beat all others within it is lauded as a success story. But I think just kind of like Oprah is lauded as like, see, a black woman can also be powerful in this system, right? It just goes forward to
Right, I see. Yeah,
inscribing the system itself.
The
right?
ethos of competition within games.
Yeah.
Sort of undermines the pluralities inherent within games.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
because to succeed in a competitive field is also to succeed within the narrowest definition of success,
Exactly.
which is, I don't know, zero sum, whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, you know, my favorite blog is called Living in Oblivion. And it's just a guy who walks everywhere in Oblivion, tries to make his life as somebody who gathers herbs, sells them, doesn't do any quests, and it's great reading, you know. But it is exactly this, you know, moving away from the narrow, preordained definition of what counts as success into more leaning into the pluralities that emerge through open play, you know, and the potentialities of that. And whether they are political or not, I don't think is the point in this moment. It's just about the ways in which those external systems which predefine the notions of what is successful increasingly make it so that we can't operate outside of those.
Yes.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, completely, right? Because if you have someone who is successful, so, right, particularly with neoliberalism, the representative of the intersectional identity of you, whether that's like, you know, a game white man or like a black woman, and the pointing to of them as a leader in their field, right, somebody who is successful at what they do, that serves its own purpose in terms of reinforcing the structure, because the idea is if they can do it, you can do it too, and therefore if you can do it, the problem isn't you. The problem isn't the system, the problem is you, right? I think it's the same thing with games, where by reifying one particular kind of competition or one particular way of playing the game, right, you are creating an environment where everyone can possibly succeed at that, which means you should succeed at that, which means if you're not succeeding at it, that means you're playing the game wrong, or you're engaging it within it in a way that's like not correct.
And that comes back to our discussion the other week about a critique of indie game development, in which it like you're saying, exactly the same sort of argument, where you create the cultural discourse which is persuasive, right, to the end that anybody can, with access to the right resources and time available through the internet, the resources for free, anybody can develop an indie game and become successful. But what that does is it elides the societal infrastructures, right, gender, sex, social economic status, sponsorship by already existing institutions, which are always tantamount to whether or not something gets produced in the first case, you know. It's like there's always a contingent aspect to which already existing resources or people who have access to resources make almost like an arbitrary decision. Like, why did Jeff Bezos take fucking Bill Shatner to space, right? Like, why, like, I was just watching that video where, like, they come back to Earth, and then Bill Shatner's about to say something, I presume, profound, we never heard, and then, you know, Jeff Bezos is like, somebody get me a bottle of champagne, you know? And it's like, why was William Shatner even... My point here is that it's completely random, and it's a fluke, you know, of the already positioned, right? It's an arbitrary, ambivalent choice of people who are already positioned, right? Whether or not something succeeds or not, you know. Oprah, for example, right? And this is everywhere in institutional discourses. Like Harvey Weinstein, for example, literally a producer. What does that mean? A gatekeeper who decides whether something is made or not, whether someone is made or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the various sorts of, qualifiers by which you let somebody through is flabby gate, But the point remains, to bring it back to a close reading of the text, so you have a narrow definition of success at the same time as you create the cultural discourse that anybody can succeed.
Yes. Yeah, exactly, right? And even though the system is designed to not allow people success by allowing certain few individuals to emulate or to achieve that, right? And therefore just bolsters the system again,
yeah.
Right? Because the illusion that the choice is there is so powerful. Right, like the illusion of choice of choosing who you want to play in a game like this.
Right, yeah, you can play anyone, right? But only certain players are going to win.
Yes, exactly, right? And it's only the people with enough cultural capital and time and resources to dedicate their lives towards playing this game that are ever going to succeed and win, right?
And how do they have the time? How do they have the resources? Because it all comes back to what? The capitalist landscape and the way in which capital shapes the social contours by which people can realize their true agency.
See, and that's why I think what makes fan labor interesting and even more tenuous, because I would say indie game development, the structures have been so heavily maintained by this point that I don't think there's really much of it. I mean, there's indie game development outside of capitalism, but what we consider to be independent game development has been so consumed by the capitalist monster that it's different. Fan labor, I think, is particularly tenuous, right, because it engages with these systems of choice and all that stuff. It doesn't do so for profit, which, like, somehow messes with what's perceived as the ideal use of these things. But at the same time, it still bolsters the system in some way. It supports it in some way, right? Oh gosh, who was the theorist who said that fan labor is always about, like, having both an opposition, an adoration and an opposition to the object, right? There's always something in it that there's never like a completely lauded,
like a Hegelian thing, inherent in the object is always its own negation.
Yeah, I think, like, right, even in fan labor that purports to, like, completely support and love the thing itself, the fact that somebody felt the need or the desire to create something that extends upon it sees it somehow places the original object as lacking in some fashion.
Yes, constraining. At the point where the constraints that once offered agency now only hold back a truer relationship, a more ideal relationship with the world, that the fans are really that's meaningful to the fans who labor, right?
Yeah. So you have this weird thing where they're literally legally, like, going against capitalist ideas of copyright and, like, intellectual property, all that stuff, right? But they're still contributing to the cultural conversation of a system that is inherently capitalist, right? Like something like this, where you add your own characters to a game like Smash Brothers, is breaking copyright laws, essentially, right? Which we could see as, like, being rebellious, but at the same time, it's just further reifying this idea of choice as a gameplay mechanic, which we've talked about supporting neoliberal economic structures for the past 30 minutes, Yeah. It's both. And that's what makes it exciting to me as an object, because it's, right, it's neither, it's right, there's a weird tenuous relationship. And I think part of it is because it's produced by people outside of these capitalist systems, but I should say outside of these official capitalist networks of production. They're outside of those capitalist networks of production, but they're still within a neoliberal framework and a neoliberal landscape.
So but then let's think about the so-called official channels of capitalist production and how, you know, they themselves are vanishing, right? To be replaced by systems in which there is only so-called unofficial production, right? Fan labor is all there is, and that's all that's legitimate. For example, Roblox, right? Like Roblox is 90% fan labor. There is no game other than fan labor, and there is no. But then that labor does not emerge out of an already existing affinity for an object which one finds constraining. It is already always the site of so-called, and the same with, I guess, Minecraft, although that does have a story mode, right? Yeah. Which we could argue is, you know, within this schema, right, this object you set up, there has to already be existing a kind of predetermined way of encountering that object. In other words, story mode, single player mode, whatever. And then in contrast to this, you have like a map editor or a Gary's mod or some kind of toolkit which is made available, but this is never articulated as being a game as well. This is always articulated as being a quasi-developer's tool, right?
Yes, yeah, completely.
But then you have this sort of eclipse moment with Roblox, where you have there is no predetermined object which encourages people to move beyond those constraints. In fact, you have the institutional sponsoring of people creating their own constraints, you know, their own games. Like my niece plays this game called like Find Your Mama or something, and everybody in the server is it's quite interesting. It's like the Kula Ring, right? Malinowski's Kula Ring, where you have people going around this Trobriand archipelago exchanging bracelets in one direction and necklaces in the other, and it's this massive aggregate 1,000-mile social institution. But when you boil it down to just one individual, they're either always doing one thing, right? They've got a guy somewhere to the west or northwest that they're going to give a bracelet to, which has been given to them by somebody coming east, and they've got a necklace given to them by the guy from the northwest, who they're going to give to the guy who comes east, right? All they do is they sort of do this motion where they put their hands over, right, one another. In Find Your Mama, right, people, players have one goal, which is to find another player to be their mum and to follow them and copy them. And in the process of finding that mum, you find that other people follow you as their mother. So you have to try and get away from them. So you have this situation where people are always displacing one another in search of a person who only wants to displace them further, right? Anyway, I don't know if those really connect up, but the point is that the fan labor inherent in the game is the only labor. Yeah. Right? Apart from that labor necessary to maintain the servers, apart from that labor necessary to maintain the rudimentary graphics, right? Yeah. Because Roblox, right? There's nothing. And actually, most of the visuals, you know, like Thomas Malaby talks about in Second Life, you know, are player created, user generated, circulated within the world at in-world stores, right? And stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah. So it's basically like they give you the framework, they give you, and this is how it could sound liberatory. Yeah. Under the neoliberal ideology, right? Yes. They give you the framework, you pay to engage with the framework of the assets and the world that they create. They hold the server for you, and what you as the player can do then is choose how you want to build your world and which assets you want to engage with and which other people you want to engage with. But, of course, underneath that idea of choice is Roblox gets millions of dollars off of you building things in the way that you like it.
Yeah, that's right. Because the labor is still being alienated. Yeah. By the capitalist enterprise. Yeah. Which owns the mode of production but does not work. Sorry, owns the means of production for the games, the servers, but does not work or play the means of production. Yeah. And interestingly, if any developers actually do that, then they are presumably yes, they're getting paid for it, but they're not getting paid. It's a completely distinct relationship still. There's still a labor-leisure division there, or I'm not sure how you'd approach that. But it's interesting, this eclipse moment where, and where is this leading to, right? Yeah. Where is this leading to? The normalization of platform alienation, right? In which, already, we do it with Facebook, we do it with YouTube, right? It's not, and then there's this tense politics between the people who are platforming and people who are performing the platform. Or who are maintaining the platform and performing the platform. And that comes out in all sorts of ways in the news nowadays. It's always newsworthy. Like, for example, when you couldn't have pornography on Tumblr anymore. So people stopped using Tumblr. When OnlyFans, when you couldn't have explicit content, or they threatened, because of visa regulations, to take away explicit content on OnlyFans. And so people were like, well, that's just going to go the way of Tumblr. And, I don't mean to bring up these sexually explicit examples, but it's just interesting how when platforms try to make these unilateral decisions, right, and the sort of the emergent tension, or the inherent tension between users and platform that always emerges.
Well, it's interesting too, because those decisions are the ones that make the ownership, the platform, or however you want to describe, right? Those kinds of decisions where we are affecting everything carte blanche, that what users can do on this platform. That, I think, makes explicit the relationship that's always been there. And that's, I think, part of why
the absolute control that the platform has, yet hides.
Yes, right? Exactly, right? And that's when it comes to the foreground, and that's when things like this happen. I think the same thing with Facebook right now, too.
Rebranding.
Right, the rebranding and the whole illusion that we all already knew. Researchers have been writing about this in, like, the New York Times and also academic journals, right? It's been in both media and popular presses that Facebook is doing all this crap. But now that somebody from the inside of Facebook has now outrightly said it, right, and we have the definitive proof of it, now suddenly it becomes...
being leaked.
Right. And that illusion can no longer maintain, right?
And yet it will.
Yes, and yet it will.
Because it's like we go back to the cooler ring again, right? It's like, where actually is the collective agency to affect something at that aggregate macro scale? Where does it actually exist? Like a lot of these narratives are sort of articulated in a way where Mark Zuckerberg, right, the Zuck, has an almost like absolute authorial agency over the platform.
Oh yeah, of course.
I don't believe that's true though. I think he's always in a network of obligations to shareholders and others, definitely not to lawmakers. But
who have no idea what's going on.
But maybe, these CEOs are so soulless because, they have become like the platforms themselves, completely... I don't know what I'm trying to say anymore. But I'm just trying to say, like, where is the authorship over the platform, not the content,
Yeah. Even the rich and the powerful are still implicated in the network.
Exactly.
They're still interpolated, right? They're still part of the capitalist framework system that exists beyond the bounds of what one person can do.
Perfect example of this is Barack Obama.
Yeah, of course.
As much as you like the guy, as much as you think like he's gonna do anything, he is still completely interpolated, suspended within a system of obligations and constraints, and also what's it called when someone and coercions, right? And a narrow definition of success, right? Like, I remember reading something about like his property portfolio, and it's like, I just never really thought that he would have a expansive property portfolio, but that's just like one scoreboard of success, isn't it? And through which, a person is powerful.
Yeah.
And there was something came out in the news the other week in the Pandora Papers about Tony Blair and Cherie Blair avoiding a tax when you buy property by buying the shell company that owns the property. This was in London or something. And it's like you wouldn't really think, is this what like ex-prime ministers get up to? You know? I mean, Tony Blair's scum of the earth, but
most world leaders are.
but in a cool way. So yeah, I mean, to recap, you know, we're talking about platforms and about how they've sort of incorporated fan labor and eclipsed fan labor into the primary form of labor that is generated, right? Like in, for example, Roblox or Minecraft or what have you. And then we were talking about, okay, well, what is the platform then? What's the nature of the platform? They have absolute power and authority, but is that absolute power and authority located, does that overlap conveniently with an individual, right? With a body, with one voice? Or is it like a corporation? I mean, they are corporations in the sense that, you know, that agency is so dissipated amongst different voices that in a way then you have then another lateral version of what we've been talking about here. It's like if authority is displaced away from one person, right, and is scattered over a group, and that group can only converge through set interpolated grammars, right, like Smash Bros. Then where comes the radical break, right, from those grammars? How can you radically change society, right, when you don't have that absolute authority vested in an individual? But the problem is then when you have radical authority invested in an individual, you're pretty much held captive to whatever they believe, you know, are the changes they wish to make. Does Jeff Bezos have absolute authority? Does Elon Musk? No, that's why they're going to space. That's the only, it's a scoreboard, right? It's ultimately another social grammar they've interpolated about how they can, you know, exercise their amazing wealth, right? Like, why don't they try, people are always like, well, if they just took that exact same amount of money and just gave it to people, they could get rid of poverty and homelessness in America, right? And it's like, yeah, but why don't they do that? I mean, is it because they're bad, mean people? Or is it because what we think of as a person, what we think of as an individual, is too naive to engage with the complexities and the complicities involved when you have that level of capital?
Yep. Well, I think, right, the idea that one, and of course, like, wealth and how it's constructed is opposite from, I mean, I shouldn't say opposite, it's different from, you know, what money you have. That's its own thing. And the wealth gap is, I mean, one person, even if it's the richest person in the world, isn't going to change what a wealth gap is, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly. So,
because right, it's systemic. It's cannot be located within one person. Because it has been developed and designed to not be located within one person.
yeah, of course, most social systems exist separate individually because they need to ensure the contiguity of that system. And if you have it all resting on one person, like right now the Queen, you know, in the UK, very touchy moment in the UK because, you know, once she passes away, you know, what the hell is our country even about? You know? What the hell is our country even about, you know?
You've still got colonies somewhere, don't you?
I thought you were going to say we still got Colin Firth.
Oh, no. Can I show you how it gets really crazy?
Yeah?
All right. We're gonna do a new match, but with different rules, so we have like all the craziness that we can possibly get.
Cool.
Yeah, of course. It's like, I'm just gonna
There you go.
that for you. Of course, right? Why is Jeff Bezos going to space? He doesn't need to go to space, but he is. Sorry, that was really dumb. All right, we're gonna do high, but we're not gonna do all of them. We're just gonna do the crazy ones. We're gonna gonna do the Pokeballs. And we're gonna do the... Where are the trophies? Right there. Alright, let's try it. I'm gonna be... Fox. You good with Ivysaur?
Yeah.
Alright.
Oh wait, can I?
Oh.
It's gone. No, don't worry about it. I don't give a fuck about my choice.
Unlike me, I do. I've been inundated, interpolated too many times.
What does that blue orb even do?
That protects you from physical attacks.
What's the Pokeball like? What's that? What the hell is going on?
Oh, he's gonna explode.
Uh-oh.
See? So you grab it with A. You just like walk up to it and hit A.
I don't have opposable thumbs though.
Oh, sorry, X. Yep.
No. I mean the dinosaur doesn't have opposable thumbs.
And then you just hit A again. Yep. And then Meowth will like attack me.
Right. Oh Jesus Christ. This is just beyond. I'm gonna have an aneurysm, David. Oh my goodness. I don't even know what I am anymore. Oh, I'm snoozing. I'm bubbling. I'm throwing a segment of line. Okay, I'm whipping.
Ooh.
I'm spinning.
Alright,
Keep
so
it,
this...
up it, crank it.
Shh. This glowing orb you want to attack, because then you'll get like cloaked in an aura.
Oh.
And then you can do like a finisher. Oh, this guy's gonna move the screen. Okay.
Oh. And then, you're gonna do a finisher on me, are you?
Yep.
Alright, finish on me.
And I get to I get to bring in this like tank. Everyone's different. Everyone's like special move is different. So like if you got it, you would do like this special final solar beam attack. But I get this.
Oh my god.
I get this thing.
What is
Landmaster. See, my problem is I've become the ideal neoliberal subject, so I can navigate all this.
Right, yeah, that's exactly that, and yeah, you've internalized all of the labor, the interpretive labor, right?
Yes.
You've internalized all of the interpretive labor necessary in order to survive the increasing precarity of neoliberal subjectivity.
Yes.
I would rather just go to sleep.
See, and I can prove that by beating you in Super Smash Bros.
Exactly, because they're transliteral or transpositional.
All right, I want you to get one of these orbs.
So how do
to
I
attack it.
With 8.
Yep, or A or B or whatever.
Alright, well, let's fuck
Oh.
off.
Now we'll have a Pokemon battle. Ooh, I got Moltres.
I am a Pokemon. Does that change things? Is this not an incest taboo for me to
To release Pokemon.
to be a Pokemon with my own Pokeball?
There you
Oh, flower.
go. Oh no. It's using
Oh,
sleep
you're
power
gonna-
on me.
Oh, and a sleep power. It does.
Ooh, I got Shadow.
What?
Alright,
Yeah.
try to get that thing. Our conversations are always wonderful, but I just want to see like the screen explode.
My brain is melting. But no, this is completely opposite to what we were discussing, and I hope that our viewers can see how, because this is nuts. This is just absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I mean, being able to play this and understand everything that's going on, every single little detail, is like I'm like the ultimate video game consumerist.
What you could
Wait, I know it not even intellectually, but I know how it works within the game itself.
You mind how the other night I was talking about social reproduction?
Mm.
The social reproduction of societies and how it's in crisis because of the acceleration of the changes that we've shifted from a society where you're the older generations can tell you what's going on to one where the youngest generations have to tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's because of the radical literacy that games and other digital media are giving us as a way to understand how to navigate and succeed within the world that we live in today.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Nap time.
I've officially destroyed your psyche.
I'm gone.
Or your mental abilities.
I'm gone.
Which is fine. But yeah, I think this has been a great discussion today.
Yeah, me too, bud. Absolutely. Always happy to come in, and I always think, I'm just gonna say the same thing, and in a way I do, but we are developing a critique, right?
Yeah, of course.
And it's fun. It's fun to be on the road.
And right, just like any good scholarship, the critique itself is somewhat approachable, but it's the facets and it's the, I don't want to say vectors, but it's the different ways.
Connections.
Yeah, it's the different ways in which it's housed within a social milieu, right?
Nested.
A historical, right? A geopolitical moment, right? We can say, well, Super Smash Brothers is evocative of a neoliberal ideology, consumerist culture, which I think most...
We could say that.
We could say that, right? Which is, I think, pretty easy to say that. But it's in the connections and it's in the conversations and the development of that idea, which is the most important part.
That's right, because it isn't that critique, existing. It's always that critique existing in a moment where me, yourself, the viewers are all approaching an ever unfolding present moment, right? Which is increasingly unraveling and raveling in ways that we need to find ways to understand, read, find meaningful, and succeed within. And like, we need to choose not just our character, of which we may have infinite choice, but we need to actually critique, understand, and change those rubrics in which we are characters, in which we are given that mechanic of choice.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Time to unplug.
Time to unplug. That was that's smartest thing that I can just say right now. So, thank you everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.